American Psycho is a movie about a guy named Patrick Bateman. It's based off of a book by Bret Easton Ellis.
This movie opens at a restaurant where people are just passing off dishes and talking about ingredients, kind of Olive Garden style.
One of the guys just enters the frame and goes, "There's not a good bathroom to do coke in."
They don't have a good bathroom to do coke in.
And then we get like the relatively famous opening scene where Patrick Bateman is narrating his morning routine, the original morning routine video. While he does not dunk his face into ice water, there's the famous shot of him peeling the face mask off. He does a bunch of push-ups and works out. The more he's talking, you're like, oh, he's really not in shape for anyone else like but himself, which is fine. That's cool. Take care of yourself. He is walking through the building like he has a purpose with his headphones on. He gets to the office and we meet his secretary.
He like tells her to wear heels. I like heels. Wear heels.
Yeah. He treats his secretary like garbage, but he says he wants equal rights.
Promote civil rights while also promoting equal rights for women.
He's just trying to fit in, but society is so two-sided that he ends up kind of being a walking contradiction.
I want to fit in.
By the way, we're gonna spoil this entire thing.
Oh yeah, full spoilers.
You come out of it not really knowing which parts of the movie were real or not. There is an aspect of what they call the unreliable narrator going on in this movie. He will say something, someone will say, sorry, I didn't catch that, and he'll say something different. The people around him might be doubting their own ears when they could have sworn he just said that he likes to kill women and bathe in their blood.
I want to stab you to death, then play around with your blood.
Which makes the audience ask, like, oh, did he actually say that first thing? Or did he, like, for example, someone will say, what line of work are you in? And he says,
Murders and executions mostly.
Sorry, what was that? And he's like, mergers and acquisitions.
I like the way they kind of slowly ease you into him being him being a killer, because they just kind of, and they do this in the book too, where it'll just be like a little thing with him at the laundromat, and then there's like blood all over the stuff that he's washing.
You're supposed to wonder, like, did he really say that? Is that his way of like getting it out of his system and putting it into the ether?
When it comes to him like saying the stuff out loud, I think the critique is that everyone is so self-involved that they don't register or care really what he's saying.
That they don't actually listen.
Yeah. They're just kind of waiting so that they can talk again.
Yeah, so anyway, some might even say, like, especially when he's with other people, he comes off as kind of more disconnected. When he's by himself, he's just kind of odd and eccentric.
Again, I think that's just to show that his mind doesn't function like a normal person does, or like a typically developing person does.
Not too far into this movie, we also get the business card scene. It's very subdued and unhinged at the same time. Like, okay, bye. You getting something so we can talk about its thickness? What are you getting? Is it a cat? Bring back a cat.
Had to get my magnet.
Magnets!
The thickness of it.
I was hoping you'd come back with one of your cats and be like, the thickness of it. Oh my God.
The tasteful thickness of it.
Do you feel like Bateman is coming apart in a very subdued way because he's comparing himself to everyone else in the room one at a time, and it's making him become more and more unhinged?
Not to be a snob, but it is just the perfect critique of consumerism, and materialism. We just obsess over these tiny little minute details.
Yeah,
it's the absurdity of it is hilarious to me.
He just walks up to a homeless guy, starts talking to him, stabs him, and kills his dog.
Throughout the movie, they're always like, even in the very beginning, they're always sitting somewhere in a meeting or at dinner, and they're like, hey, isn't that Paul Allen? That's not Paul Allen. That's blah, blah, blah. Like, hey, isn't that Jerry from accounting? No, that's not Jerry. That's this person. It's because they're all the same. They're all so similar. Okay. They're constantly mistaking each other for someone else. When Paul Allen, Jared Leto, comes up and meets Bateman for the first time, he calls him by a different name with complete confidence that he is that other person. And then he goes out to dinner.
Doesn't know.
And still doesn't know that it's Bateman.
He goes out to dinner and insults Bateman to Bateman's face, not knowing that this is Bateman.
Yeah, because everybody is like the same.
They grab a bite to eat, and Paul Allen and Patrick Bateman, they're both like total jackasses to their waiter.
Would you like to hear the specials? Not if you want to keep your spleen.
Bateman takes Paul Allen home. They start listening to Huey Lewis and just starts talking about the music or its cadence or its flow.
It's hip to be square.
Hip to be square.
The chair Paul Allen is sitting in is surrounded by newspapers or tarps or something.
He Dexterified the room, yeah.
And in the middle of talking about this music, he just stops mid-sentence with a shiny axe that looks like it's never been used. It has like a mirror finish on it. And he kills Paul Allen with it.
And Batman kills the Joker.
Finally, having someone call him names at the dinner table was enough for him to be like, yeah, I'm fragile enough to kill you now.
Actually, I don't think that's why he killed him. I honestly think he killed him because he got a reservation at Dorsia. Before the business card scene, he tries to take his, not his girlfriend, but his mistress. He tries to take her to Dorsia, but he can't get a reservation there. I think he gets her drunk and tells her that it's Dorsia, but it's actually a place with a different name that kind of sounds like Dorsia. In the book, she catches on to him doing that. In the movie, she doesn't even notice that it's not Dorsia. I think that, like, failing not to get it is what drives him to kill him. That's just my personal theory. I love when he's dragging Paul Allen's body. The doorman just looks at him and goes,
He just looks, and like the trail of blood is coming out of the bag as he drags it. And he's just like, whatever.
And then Gavin Belson finds him or sees him putting the body in the trunk. And he's like, oh, wait. He doesn't even notice. Hey, where'd you get that bag? So he goes to Paul Allen's apartment and he like packs a bag to make it seem like Paul Allen like left town. I think he re-records a voicemail to let people know who are calling him that he's out of town.
Yeah, that seems like a really reckless thing to do.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, not long after Paul Allen dies, we meet Willem Dafoe, who's a detective investigating Paul Allen's disappearance. You're supposed to kind of feel like Willem Dafoe is immediately on to him. When he's talking to Willem Dafoe, when he's talking about Paul Allen, he uses the word was in a sentence where he should have said is.
Bummer.
Willem Dafoe did a movie called Antichrist. And over the course of this movie, Willem Dafoe had to get naked. His penis was so large that they had to call in a body double because they felt like it would be too distracting. I believe Lars von Trier used the term confusingly large. This is my Roman Empire. My Roman Empire is the body double who got that phone call. This is going to be a weird phone call. But we need to know if your penis is smaller than Willem Dafoe's. Willem Dafoe's penis is too big for our movie. Can you come in?
So naturally we thought of you. Oh,
yeah,
man.
right? Like they're asking around. They're asking people on set, listen, do you know any like PAs in the area you've hooked up with that were like, you were whelmed? You were
Oh my God.
Not overwhelmed, not underwhelmed, just whelmed.
You might be familiar with this story, but in Gilligan's Island, there's a scene in an episode of Gilligan's Island where it's like a shower scene with Ginger. And at the time, like Ginger was this huge like icon and everybody loved her, right? She's like, oh, I'm gonna do the whole thing nude. Obviously they can't show that on TV, but it's gonna be like her behind like a shower thing. She was just joking and she like took off her towel and she actually did have something on and she was like, I got y'all, you know, and it's like this funny moment. There is a moment like that while recording this film. When it came time to film the shower scenes where he was naked, not a single chick was sick that day. They all showed up and watched Christian Bale take a shower.
You know what? I bet a lot of guys were on time too.
Probably.
I guess this is kind of a testament to Christian Bale's acting in this movie. Almost every line he says it in a way where I'm like, that's a psychotic way to say that.
Oh, yeah.
Even though I've heard people say things like this before, but you just sound psychotic saying it.
I like the bit of foreshadowing when he's doing sit-ups. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is playing, which is a bit of foreshadowing with him with the chainsaw later. So at this point in the movie, yeah, we're at the point where he picks up 2 prostitutes. He tells them he's Paul Allen.
He puts like a VHS camera in the corner of his room and he like flexes in the mirror.
He's also pontificating quite a bit about music, which is something he does a lot in the movie and in the book.
After he has sex with them, he wakes up in the middle of the night. And what is it he gets? I'm trying to remember. He gets something out of his...
boner.
He has like all of these sharp tools and a piece of office supplies.
He holds up like a coat hanger.
And then it cuts to them leaving, and they're like roughed up. They have scratches and bruises and a bloody nose. He meets a woman in this party at the club, talks to her outside, and convinces her to go home with him, leading to what might be the most chilling edit of the movie. It cuts to the next morning, and he's just holding a lock of her hair.
And he just puts it in his pocket.
I guess that's one thing about this movie I do also appreciate is some of its creepiest moments are almost treated like it is mundane.
Subtle, yeah.
No music, no tension, no escalation. He has Dorcia's number memorized because of course he does.
So he takes her back to his place because he can't get a reservation at Dorcia. His fiance calls him and leaves a message on his machine while they're talking.
While she's there.
She's there, yeah. But I think it's also worth noting that when he put the nail gun to her head, he said, I just want to form a meaningful connection with someone. I think I'd hurt you if you stayed, And she's like, yeah, you're right, I should go. You know what's kind of crazy? Maybe I'm wrong, and I could absolutely be wrong. I think he notices that she's the only person that in his life that isn't vain. And he's like, maybe I shouldn't kill her. And that's kind of nuts.
The scene after that cuts to him in a restaurant pouring a comically large amount of salt onto his plate. So he has some food with Defoe, and after that, he goes back and picks up the same 2 prostitutes that left his place injured. And he brings them back to his place again. They don't want to.
Yeah, but it's also not his place. It's Paul Allen's place. But it is interesting because the one that's new is super oblivious, and you can tell the one that been in his service before is looking super freaked out because she knows what's coming,
So it cuts to the 3 of them just rolling around under the sheets. One of the gals rolls out of the sheets and kind of goes to get away or use the bathroom or something. And as she, honestly, probably to leave, I think she's trying to leave. She kind of looks like she's getting her things. And as she's leaving, the noise under the sheets shifts, it changes, and she looks up and there's blood coming through the sheets now. And of course, that makes her realize it's definitely time to go because the other prostitute is now screaming and trying to get out from under the sheets. And Patrick Bateman rips the sheet back and sees that she's trying to leave. So then we start a chase scene. Basically, I think this whole scene probably didn't happen.
Why?
She runs through the house, opens a door, and finds body bags with 2 ladies in them, super duper deadzo. Then she runs into another room, and this is shot like it is far more gorier than it is willing to show the camera. There's a room just spattered with blood that says, "Die yuppie scum," with pieces of people all over the floor. So she's like, nope, F that, I'm out. Turns the corner, and out comes Patrick Bateman, covered in blood, completely naked, with a chainsaw.
And white sneakers. It's like George of the Jungle, no socks, just sneaks.
She finally finds the door that leads her out of the apartment, into the bathroom, and she finds another body on the floor covered in blood. So Christian Bale comes in and bites her leg after she falls on the floor. She gets her wits about her, kicks him in the face, and bolts out. She finally finds the door that leads out of the apartment, runs through the hallway, absolutely screaming as loud as she possibly can, slamming on every door possible. At that point, I guess I'm still supposed to believe that this world is so apathetic that wouldn't raise any alarms. She then gets to the staircase to start running out of the building, where he starts chasing her through the hallways while revving the chainsaw. And still nobody thinks much anything of it. No one opens their door, no one anything. As she's running down the stairs, he holds the chainsaw over the banister. He drops the chainsaw, and we don't see it hit her, but afterwards we see the aftermath. It's lodged in her side, and all the blood is pooling out onto the floor. I don't think this happened. He just drops a chainsaw with a chain that's not spinning. Also, I don't get how it stuck in her side when what was exposed was her head.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And she's pooling blood all over the floor. There is no way that 0 people are going to notice that before he gets it all cleaned up. It was too much and too chaotic for me to believe that it was real.
Not to sound like a broken record, but it is part of the critique of the film is the world that this takes place in is just full of people who are so consumed that he can do all this and no one would really know.
I view the critique as more on him. He believes the world to be so insanely selfish that nobody cares. But the secretary does.
I wonder if she looked at his crossword puzzles because he's just writing meat and bone over and over again.
Yeah, it cuts to the next day and he's talking with his fiance and breaks up with her at the table. Then when he can't handle her making a scene during lunch. He storms off, and she's like, "Where are you going?" And he says he has to go return some videotapes.
I love the way he says it. The way he delivers that line is so fucking funny to me. It's just like, I have to return some videotapes.
I have to return some videotapes.
The way he killed the woman with the chainsaw from the night before. He's drawing that on the table while she's talking to him, and she doesn't notice at all.
Things are definitely happening on screen that are not really happening. He walks up to an ATM machine, and it tells him to feed it a stray cat. So he picks up the stray cat that he sees on the sidewalk and puts a gun up to its head. And when a lady is like, "What are you doing? You're crazy," he shoots her instead. And that makes the cops start to come after him, and he panics. He starts setting off car alarms everywhere he goes to like make a bunch of noise. He shoots at the cops, and then his bullets blow up a police car.
He runs into what he thinks is his building, and there's a security guard there, and he goes, "Oh, hey, Mr. Smith, burning the midnight oil?" So again, there's the mistaken, like everybody looks the same, mistaken identity kind of thing. Yeah, he realizes that he's in the wrong building, and then he shoots him.
So finally, he walks into the right building, sees a helicopter looking for him, and he makes a confessional phone call to his lawyer about all the horrible things that he did.
Amazing performance by Christian Bale. Absolutely amazing. Around this moment in the movie is where we are going to agree that his grasp on reality is definitely faltering.
Well, it's been faltering for a long time.
For me, I think this is kind of when it actually does. I think a lot of stuff that happened before this was real.
I don't, but I'll get into why later.
If I were to take a firm stance, I would say that I think you won me over with the last prostitute with the chainsaw going through her. I would say that maybe that is the one moment that wasn't real. Like that's when it started, because I think she actually got away.
Do you think he actually went on a shooting spree?
No.
Me neither.
I mean, if he did, it didn't happen the way we saw it.
He goes to Paul Allen's place the next morning. It's being shown to possible people to live there. Like, nothing's there anymore. People are looking at it to possibly live in it, and he starts going through where he thought he put all the bodies, and they're gone. Everything is painted white. And the woman's like, "Can I help you?" And he's like fumbling for words. This is a moment that I think does a decent job at getting the audience to question what's real and what's not. Because she says, "I think you should leave.
Don't make
You're
any
like,
trouble." That's what she says.
Yeah. Is she putting together who he is and that he's why the apartment was in such a grisly condition when before it got cleaned up and shown to potential new tenants? Or does she just think he's crazy and he's going to make a scene while she's there trying to do her job? Do you think there were bodies in the apartment?
Yes, I do. I honestly think they saw all of this and scrubbed it clean so that they could resell it. Because one of the main themes in this story is that financial incentives are greater than moral ones. So I think they looked at all of this and was like, we're scrubbing it clean and we just got to sell it because that money is way more important than making a huge story. Again, this is all subjective. You can interpret this movie in different ways, and that's fine. In the book, there's a scene where a cab driver mugs him, and he recognizes him as someone who murdered one of his friends. He was actually going to turn him into the police, but then he realized that there's no reward for doing that. But like in the book, they know that they're looking for a serial killer, and there's actually a wanted poster with his face on it, I believe. This is like the only time where someone actually confronts him about being the killer. And instead he just robs him because he's like, it makes no sense for me. Like, I'm not going to get any money by taking you in, so I'm just going to rob you because that's more financially beneficial for the cab driver. That plays into the theme. So to me, that tells me, like, reading that scene and then reading this scene just tells me that, like, people are just they're more concerned with finances than anything else. They're more concerned with a financial gain.
One of the guys he walks up to, it's his lawyer. It's the lawyer that he called and left a voice message with.
He confessed everything to him, yeah.
He confesses to everything, and the lawyer thinks it's a prank. And he asks him, "Why is it impossible that I killed Paul Allen?" And the lawyer says, "Because I just had lunch with him, like a couple weeks ago," something like that. And he just walks away before Bateman comes apart anymore in front of him. And after that, we cut back to the office where we see the majority of his crude drawings in the notebook planner as the secretary goes through it and sees all of these horrible things. And it goes back to the narration style, where ultimately he feels like despite all of his confessions, everything up to this point has ultimately meant absolutely nothing, and the movie ends.
So what do you make of that?
If anybody in this movie was killed by him, it was probably just the homeless guy. One of the cuts in the movie was right after dropping the chainsaw. It cuts to him drawing in his sketchbook. It's like a hard cut. And I was like, oh, he's thinking about all this while drawing it. He's imagining it. Like, I think what we're seeing is the vision in his own head of how it would go while he's actually just having a really boring time with his cute fiance at a restaurant while it all comes apart, so he leaves to return some tapes. I told you earlier, I would say why I think his grasp on reality came apart a lot sooner than the movie paints is because Paul Allen was his second victim in the movie, and it didn't happen.
Sure about that?
You think the lawyer's lying to him?
I view this whole thing completely differently. Throughout the whole movie, we see people saying, "Oh, who's that over there? That's so and so. That's not so and so. That's Greg." Right? And it's because they keep mistaking each other for each other. They keep mistaking one another for someone else because nobody has a clear identity in this circle. Even when he goes up to the lawyer, he doesn't know him right away. "Did you get my message?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, that was you, wasn't it?" See, it's like he doesn't know right away until he identifies himself. I think that the lawyer thinks he had dinner with Paul Allen because everybody keeps getting each other's names wrong.
It's Paul Allen. It's not Paul Allen. Paul Allen's on the other side of the room over there.
Who's he with?
Depending on what murders did or didn't happen, it's debatable on whether or not Willem Dafoe was even a real character. Because if Paul Allen didn't die, Willem Dafoe has no reason to be there, because that's the only person he's investigating the disappearance of. I struggle to suspend my disbelief that this level of apathy exists everywhere. Because I think the idea that this level of apathy might exist inside of Patrick Bateman's accounting firm or his department or his group of buddies, I could buy that.
But this isn't super realistic, remember? This is supposed to be somewhat satirical.
Which I didn't know until he was dragging a body bag on the floor and everyone was like, which is one of the few times where people in the outside world are really super duper apathetic. What I'm not sure of is if that was Bateman's interpretation of the apathy or if I'm supposed to really believe that's what actually was happening in the real world. So where I am now, and I'm malleable, you could win me over.
You're fine.
If someone was a real death, it was the homeless guy. I don't think he killed Paul Allen, and I don't think he killed the prostitutes, but I do think he had them over, and I do think he was rough with them.
Why don't you think he killed Paul Allen?
I think that lawyer did not make a mistake at the end. I think he actually did have dinner with Paul. I think he did, because I think he got kind of scared straight when he realized that Christian Bale's character wasn't joking.
No way.
You don't?
I think he killed Paul Allen, and the lawyer just can't tell anyone apart because everybody is so similar in this like circle of friends that he just thought that he thought that he had dinner with Paul Allen, but it was really just someone else. Because I think that because in the movie, Paul Allen literally has dinner with someone who he thinks is someone else, and it's Patrick Bateman. And that kind of thing just happens all the time.
As the movie plays out, there's plenty of times where that level of apathy does not exist in everyone. There are times where people react very realistically to dire circumstances.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like the only people who do react realistically are the people who are not in high society. You know, the homeless guy, the secretary,
the homeless guy,
and
the woman at the ATM.
The woman at the ATM.
I think Patrick scared the hell out of his lawyer, and it made the lawyer like kind of square up and get serious. I am of the mind that a lot of this is in his head. Like I said, I don't think he killed the prostitutes because it was just it was too much for me to buy. To the point that one of his murder instruments struck an impossible angle in a manner that chainsaws just straight up don't operate. I actually do kind of like that we're walking away with like two different takeaways on on this.
That's the beauty of film, you know?
Christian Bale, while looking for inspiration for this character, based part of it off of Tom Cruise. He was watching an interview with Tom Cruise, and he said when he looked at him, Tom Cruise was very smiley and polite and happy, but there was nothing behind the eyes. So he decided to base part of his presentation on that, and apparently did such a good job that when he met Bret, the author of the original book, he met him in character, and after about 10 minutes, the writer told him to stop because it was creeping him out.
It's kind of, I like that it's ambiguous. I think what drives him psycho is that under the facade, he couldn't find anything genuine. In this movie, it's rumored that apparently he can sweat on cue.
That's bizarre.
Yeah, some people cry on cue. Christian Bale can sweat on cue, which is nuts. I don't know how you do that. I think I told you this earlier. A lot of brands pulled out of the movie, like they wanted to put a lot of product placement in the movie, and like Rolex and Klein, they were like, nah, fuck that.
That's not so.
We're not going to be in this movie. We don't want our brand associated with psychos and murderers and Dorcia.
The movie is graphic, don't get me wrong, but I expected it to not just be graphic, I expected it to feel exploitative. In the hands of the wrong director, this movie would have been far more grotesque, be
Absolutely.
they man, woman, or otherwise. Like,
I heard a thing, maybe this is wrong, but I heard a thing, I saw like a trivia or something about Cronenberg was going to direct the movie adaptation at one point.
in the hands of another director, it would, it would have been like scouring bodies with a 50 millimeter lens and getting a close up of nipples and, making sure we hear every flat, like, slap of flesh as everybody has sex.
When he kills Paul Allen, it just stays on him. Stays on him for a while.
To Mary's credit directing this movie, she did a really good job in such a way that you and I are walking away with two different feelings on what happened or what didn't.
There was a movie with Mila Kunis, which was a horror movie that was just about like a college girl who decides to go on a murder spree. And while they were filming the movie, the producers decided to make it American Psycho 2. They changed the entire script, and they made her kill Bateman in the beginning of the movie off screen. And then she becomes a serial killer, and it's a terrible movie. It probably would be a cult classic now if it had no association with American Psycho.
I don't understand why Patrick Bateman as a character is something that has been culturally latched onto. When you're scrolling through YouTube and you inevitably hit one of those like join the manosphere reels that are like, in order to be a man, you have to da-da-da-da-da. And as an example of someone you want to be like, it shows Patrick Bateman.
That's the interesting impact that the movie has had on culture. Ellis intended Bateman to be a critique of male narcissism, and male narcissism at the time. So it was like the 80s or so. At the same time, it inspired self-indulgence for some who molded themselves after Patrick Bateman.
Did you know I'm utterly insane?
That was American Psycho.
Yep, that was American Psycho. It's got a Metacritic score of 64 and an IMDb rating of 7.6, so it's pretty well liked and pretty well regarded. How it came back into meme culture, I'm not 100% certain, but it did.